Hi there, this is Izzy. This week I've noticed that my Howeara lava burst is looking a little funny and I think it might need a repot. So if we take a closer look at the plant, quite a lot of the older pseudo bulbs are quite wrinkly, struggling a little bit. There's quite a few bits that we need to tidy up in here. But what's giving me slight warning signals are the fact that we're starting this medium staying very damp for a long time, which is good for this plant. It likes a lot of water. I've seen in the past that this newer growth has only been this size because it's been well watered more than I used to water it. But this new growth here is growing very thin roots. Can you see that new root there is nothing like the nice larger old roots down here. And that's a bit odd. And the other thing that's a little odd is the leaves are also starting to look a bit leathery. So I think it's high time I took this out of the pot. It's finished flowering, so it's a great time to repot it. It's got new growth, new roots, so that also means it would adapt to a new medium very well. But I think we're going to have to look inside the pot and see what's going on with this plant. So I'm just going to hoik it out. Nice root system here, but it does seem to be quite a bit smaller than the pot. So that's one thing. I can see quite a few dead roots in here as I'm just massaging out the old medium. What looks like, yes, some old and rotted pseudo bulbs down here. Now I don't want to keep those in here, they won't be any good for the plant later because they will be a source of rot and infection going into the future. So it looks like this plant's having a little bit of a rejuvenation, getting rid of its old pseudo bulbs and bringing in some new ones, but that means I've got to help it get rid of some of these old back bulbs so that it can stay healthy. Now I might have to snip that back there because that's wanting to hang on. It's attached by the rhizome. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I can just pull. I'm a bit reluctant to send scissors into this until I know exactly where all the roots are, but I think I'm going to have to. Right, so where shall we cut? About here. It looks like there's only dead roots and old rhizome after that point, so that's good. So here we go, here's some old rhizome. Maybe this old rotting growth was one of the reasons why it wasn't doing so well, but I can also see and feel some of these roots aren't great either, so I'm just going to give it a little trim to get rid of any of the old roots, because they go a little bit like sponges for water when they're old but aren't actually useful for acquiring water for the plant anymore. So you can see here that's just a filament, and sometimes that core can do things, but without the outer layer of the root it's not as useful to the plant. This one's a bit squidgy, so what I'm doing is feeling up the roots to see which roots are firm and therefore still contain some greying matter, and which roots are quite squidgy and are therefore probably dead. I'm quite conservative when it comes to removing roots. I don't like to remove too many because on some of these smaller plants it can be a bit hard to tell what's what. But in this case, because the upper part of the plant has shown evidence of being unhappy and a bit stressed somehow, I think it's good to do a bit more of a thorough pruning of any roots coming off this plant that I don't like the look of. And plus, with it going into a new medium, it's going to stay in that medium for a little while, so I do want it to be ready when it goes in. Right, so I had two pots lined up for this plant, one the same size as the original, but actually I'm going to go with a slightly smaller one, which is also clear plastic. That's quite nice because I can see the root system wasn't filling the original pot, so this pot's probably going to do nicely. I'm going to plant it quite far on the left hand side, And for this plant, I'm going to actually go for a different medium to what I had before. So I had bark in here and it's really quite damp, but the plant wanted quite a bit more water than I could get into it with bark. So I think just having a little bit of sphagnum moss around the base will help my plant to actually retain a little bit more water, and maybe then I'll need to water it less, mist it less, things like that. So I'm just going to put a very small amount of moss in here, nothing big, and that's just going to act as like a little reservoir for this plant, a little bit like a natural form of semi-hydroponics, I guess. And I'm going to fit all the roots in. This plant's old end is over here, the oldest part of the rhizome, the growing side, and the newest part clearly there. So I'm going to position it quite far to the left, with all of the opportunity for this plant to grow off to the right of this pot, and then just fill it in with the new bark and tap it down. Now, I tend to use dry media when I'm repotting a plant, and then water the plant afterwards. And I know that many people probably wouldn't do it that way. Many people would probably use a damped medium and put the plant straight into that. But I personally quite like potting my plant and then giving it some water to allow the new medium to settle, so that the plant, so there's this opportunity for me to readjust it if I need to, because you see this plant's quite wobbly. It's got to really adapt to that new medium, and maybe watering it in will help with that, maybe it won't, maybe other things will help with that, maybe they won't, but we shall see. I put a few larger pieces on the top here just to finish up. Maybe they will help still stabilise it in the long term. But in general, it's looking all right. We've got a few, I've kept the growing rhizome out of the medium, so it's a little bit raised. Should stay a little drier there, but we've got the little sphagnum moss down the bottom to keep the roots a bit wetter. We'll see how these new roots do and how the new growth does in this new pot. So fingers crossed it's going to like this. Fingers crossed that this leatheriness on the older leaves is going to go away. Fingers crossed this new growth is going to do better. Right, I'll give this a little bit of water. That's it for now. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you would like to see more, you can always join the channel. It's been lovely to see you. And that's it for this week. Bye.